Welcome back to the part two. We're going to jump straight into the next scenario and explore this very intriguing letter. It reads, Dear It Takes Two, is it un-Islamic to keep secrets from my future husband? If I tell a lie or not disclose information concerning myself and my past, does this nullify my marriage? I have read that if you lie to your future spouse about certain things when entering into a marriage, then this can make the marriage void. When I was 12, I was sexually assaulted. I feel that if I disclose this information to potential suitors, then it could hinder my reputation and deem me unsuitable as a wife. Very heartfelt letter there. Sister Ruby, what's your first things that come to mind?
My heart goes out to the sister. She's gone through some traumas upon her, but inshallah she's got a whole future ahead of her, which looks promising. I'm not a scholar, so I cannot give the Islamic perspective on what the ruling would be, but I can give one of an emotional perspective, and that is that I would personally, this is my own opinion, I would not reveal that incident that happened, not because it's shameful or anything.
She hasn't done anything wrong.
But she hasn't done anything wrong.
To be ashamed of.
And with these situations, they're so delicate that it can sometimes cause problems for the other partner. You don't know what cultural background the person is from. You don't know how it will be interpreted, etc. For me, I don't see it as lying because you haven't said a lie. You're keeping something traumatic that happened discreet. Now, in the relationship, if she should have problems or she has some traumatic flashbacks or whatever, then I think she should discuss it with her husband so they can work on it together. But it's not something that has damaged her character. It is not something that she should walk around feeling ashamed about.
Definitely not. Yeah.
And I don't think what has happened to her, through no fault of her own, should have any impact on her future. And I don't know what type of person she's marrying. Maybe he's very open-minded and educated and knows about these situations, or he might be from a particular background where they don't know about these things, and they may even have a negative attitude about it, that you're spoiled goods or something. But I think, again, I think she needs to maybe have some counselling and discuss whether maybe she wants to talk about it but feels that she doesn't know how he's going to interpret it.
She just to jump in, she mentions that in a kind of context that she wonders if it would hinder her in terms of marriage for potential suitors. I'm not sure if she has a specific person in mind, or is it if I meet somebody to talk about marriage who may be interested, every time I'm meeting new people, so is this going to be something that I have to disclose? So that means more people need to know who may not be.
I would say no.
Interested.
I would say
that's
no.
Very complicated.
Exactly.
And maybe quite unnecessary.
Well, why would you want to tell everybody? Decide on, inshallah, who you're going to marry, and if you feel that's something you want to disclose, then disclose it. If it's not, then don't, because we could possibly think, well, what is the psychological ramifications? This might affect her marriage, but it might not. But that's my opinion. If she feels that she doesn't want to disclose that, I feel that she doesn't have to. It's not lying, you've just not addressed the issue. If it comes about in the relationship, then she can, and she feels secure in her marriage, she can discuss it with her husband and they can move forward. But I don't think it's a game changer, like when they're doing the contract, she must state what happened to her. And I don't think so, but the scholar knows best.
Let me just bring a statement. Just to ask you, legally, is it wajib, is it mandatory for her to disclose this because somebody's interested in marrying her? Is that in itself a lie if she doesn't tell them? I just want to clear that up from
in general,
fiqh point of view.
Telling the truth is not wajib, without talking about marriage or contract. But in general, lying is haram, but telling the truth is not wajib. when it gets into marriage or to any contract, each partner should know few things about, or each part should know something about the other, depending on what they are agreeing on. Like if I agree to do such and such work, you need to know my qualification, I need to know the kind of work. In marriage also there are some kind of things each of them should know about each other. Like for instance, I do remember one of the Ayatollahs, one of the big scholars in Najaf, his daughter had a problem with, and I remember two cases, but her daughter has one problem with one of her ear. So when a guy proposed to her, he told him, because religiously he should know. In this case, if her body is not affected in a way that he, the husband, the future husband, should have known, then she should use her common sense or judgment to see whether he, as the sister says, whether he came from a culture which can understand, whether religiously he is up to that standard, because even religiously is so good for one of the partners to keep secrets and try to, do what we call sitter in Islam and in Arabic, to not to cover but try to not to open the problems, try to disclose it as much as he can. So it's good for him to do so, but is he mature enough to understand the size of the issue? I do remember also from a story being told from the old scholars and members of the family about our great grandfather Allama Bahr al-Ulum. Before he slept, it's a long story, I will cut it short. He asked Allah, Ya Rabbi, I want to know someone from heaven. And for 3 nights he's been told such and such name in Hilla is, his name is Jasim, such and such, he is from Al-Jannah. He couldn't have believed it because he thought that someone will tell him Sheikh Mufid, Sheikh Qusi, whatever. 3rd day, Sayyid Bahr al-Ulum goes every year, once to Hamza al-Sharqi and once to Hamza al-Gharbi. He visits the sons of the Imams, and one of them is next to Hilla. And usually he goes with his students, a big group of ulama. When they reach Hilla, he usually stayed with the Qazwini family because his sister is married to the Qazwini. This time he said, I want to stay in Jasim's house. Everyone was astonished and surprised because the guy wasn't well known of have a good reputation. And cutting this story short, the Sayyid asked him before he slept, what have you done? He said, I haven't done anything in my life. He wasn't religious. The 3rd day or the 2nd day, he said, I do remember my parents wanted me to get married to so-and-so. And just before marriage, I realized that she wasn't a virgin. Someone probably abused her. And we stayed together because on those days she would have been killed. And this is all. And then Sayyid said, this is probably why you became one of Ahl Jannah, people of heaven. And then the guy stopped doing what he used to be doing, and he went to Sayyid and became a student in the house. This story probably reflects the importance of these kind of action. It's very important that we need. In fact, just before I came in, I had people in my office talking about a scholar who has done a mistake or something, as they've been telling me. And then we had a disagreement because I told them that we are all not infallible. We all at some stage make mistakes. So we should contain and try to keep the secrets and the mistakes. And for each problem there is a solution. But providing that she knows him well, whether he understands, and clearly she has got the right to get married. If she thinks that will stop him, she then need to do so. At the same time, she need to understand or to think about the future. If at some stage he would discover that, would that affect the marriage, would that affect the children? All of these things should be thought about.
What about in some Muslim cultures, the idea of virginity is a very big thing for a woman being married for the first time. I would consider her as such because of what she's disclosed. She hasn't disclosed anything other than that. But some people may not perceive her as a virgin. What would you say about what would you say about that?
It's not only Muslim Originally, everyone used to think that way. Even nowadays, I think most of people in the world, apart from the West, when it becomes familiar or it doesn't become an issue. Otherwise, it is an important issue, depending on where they come from. But as I said, it all depends on the way of thinking, the background, why this happened, whether she is lying. It's different that if someone lost the virginity because she was sleeping with few people and she's lying to the husband. But this is different from she's been attacked or sexually abused or raped or all of that is different. So we can't really say something just because of the issue of virginity. I think the sister was thinking.
I was going to say the same thing. This wasn't a conscious decision that she made. She hasn't inflicted anything on herself. So in the eyes of Allah, I'm sure Allah is merciful and would classify her as who she was meant to be before the incident. But we can't speak on behalf of Allah, but that would just be my opinion. Also, what I was going to say is that it's not like the sister has alopecia, which is a condition where you don't have hair, and you're about to get married. That's something that you would have to disclose to your husband, that you have a physical issue. This is something that happened to her that was traumatic, and she had which might not have an effect on the marriage in a negative sense. I think in that case she can decide not to disclose it. But if an issue arises later in the marriage, and as Sayed said, depending on his culture, his maturity, his understanding, then she may need to address it. But maybe she needs to bring someone who she trusts to disclose that information to him. Because for some males, it can be very traumatic, especially in a cultural environment. They feel that, but somebody else has taken something that belonged to them, and their egos get sometimes a bit brash. But again, you need the maturity and understanding to.
Sorry for interrupting. Religiously, we need to make that clear. For the husband and the wife, before the marriage contract is recited, they need to know about few things about each other. I mean, if the husband is going to get married to ex-lady on the basis that she is virgin and she is not virgin, that might make things different. So she.
According to, all right, and so on a level of fiqh, would a woman who's been attacked against her will as a young woman or as a child, something like that, would she, from a fiqh point of view, be considered a virgin if she'd been inappropriately attacked?
No, a virgin is a virgin. I mean, if she's been attacked and she lost her virginity, but they can probably explain to the husband. I know it's very difficult, but I'm trying just theoretically. I'm just trying getting the thing from the books. She need to be. They both, because he may later on, if he discovered that she is not virgin, he may pull out and say, we got married on the basis that she is virgin. I had a couple who got divorced. One of the reasons the husband said that I thought that she is virgin, and she told me that she is virgin and she is not virgin. I'm sure there is a way of persuading him, explaining it to him. Especially, it seems like both of them, they live in a modern country, in a Western country. So the problem is not that serious, and she hasn't been mentioned virginity or something. There are so many things we can't. But this is something she need, or she should have thought about, or she should think about before she take a decision. Something, because sometimes I know there are hard decisions and hard circumstances, but we need to know what's going on.
She needs to explore. I agree. Explore her feelings and her options.
I think you mentioned something really important when you said she has to use almost, well, these are my words, her wisdom, but common sense, because some men do not have the emotional or the intellectual capacity to deal with that, and they would just not cope with that. Then it's probably best that she doesn't pursue a relationship or marriage with this kind of person.
And his background is also very important. I mean, she wouldn't have probably expected herself to be married to someone who came from, the
Eastern country.
Yeah, I wouldn't
very, very
fresh
traditional.
off the boat.
But if someone comes from the West, then it's different. I'm sure she would be able to judge. or prepare him for
Yes,
the
but this has to
acceptance.
be someone that she wants to marry, not just anybody, any prospectus that comes and wants to ask for her hand. Not just anybody. This is somebody that you want to marry and have a contract with. It's not everybody's business.
There
Yeah,
are-
that's because that's what she reads in the letter. Just to mention, she's saying, "Do I have to mention this, but to any potential suitor?" And I guess in that context, it could just be somebody just inquiring,
Not
or
just
just
inquiring,
inquiring
that's
and
too
maybe
personal.
interested. Just very personal.
True.
Personal
I think that
information.
we've got a couple of issues also. I'm sure she is gonna know someone before marriage, and knowing him because she came. Sounds like it's not purely arranged and whatever. She would be able, and it's her job, to prepare him, to make him understand, and I'm sure he would. Depends on how much they love each other. These are all important issues related to the matter. So probably she would be able to explain or to prepare him for this, rather than abrupt decision or suddenly she tell him he proposed. I don't think the case is as difficult as it is. There are ways of introducing him to this or to her scenario.
I'd agree.
You would agree with that?
I would, but I just think it's important. I think before she gets married, she needs some psychological help. I know that sounds like a cliche, but just to make sure she's ready. She's been through some trauma. Is there anything she wants to air out before she goes into this?
One more thing before we finish. I know it sounds unfair. It might have sounded unfair on her. She probably would say, "Why is me? Why is that?" The answer is simple. I mean, in life, the amount of trouble, torture, suffering probably give us extra reward and thawab. So this is all going to be appreciated, and probably she would have better place in heaven and in the alam al-akhar. So she shouldn't give up, and she should accept that as part of her suffering in this life. In Ziyarat Aminullah, Imam says, Allahumma ja'alni nafsi mutma'innatan biqadarik radiyatan biqada'ik. It's like someone when he got a disease. That doesn't mean that Allah doesn't like him, but he should accept it, and he should understand that this probably will give him extra reward. We have riwayat, hadith from Ahlul Bayt states that in the Day of Judgment, the sufferer would ask for, he would probably say, why didn't I have more suffering? Because of the level he went, he will go on higher level. So this is all appreciated, and probably she will get more rewards and thawab. That probably will enable her to work harder and to accept and to be happier in the
And have confidence in her
Ahsanti.
decision,
Yeah.
in her.
And
in
it's
her
not matter of
decision.
fair. It's not unfair on me, because that probably will make her, desperate.
Wiswasu for
Desperate
Iman.
and
Sad, yeah.
miserable and sad.
Yes, I agree.
Obviously, unfortunate as it is, there are times throughout history and throughout civilizations that women can be victims of this type of behavior. I was wondering if there's anything from the history of Islam where the Prophet or the Imam alayhi salam have spoken about, victims of this type of crime they're nothing to be ashamed of, or something, something about this type of
Always
behavior.
there are encouragement of marrying the ladies who has no partners, ladies who has no parents. The Imam used to bring to discourage slavery, to bring the mawali, the slaves, and he freed them and he teaches them, and we had so many of those.
Widows, you have examples of widows, divorcees.
Became companion of the Prophet, of the Imam, best student, the widow. Most of all of the Prophet wives were widows, and only Khadija, only Aisha was the only virgin who the Prophet ﷺ got married to. So always we have encouragement in general for fi'l al-khair, and clearly one of the best deed is to to do something with someone who's been oppressed or been life was unfair to him.
Yeah.
So there is no question behind that. It's the best thing.
There's nothing negative on a scale.
It's so many positive.
Yeah.
It's the opposite way. So many positive.
Well, look at what's going on now. Or previously in countries in Bosnia where so many Muslim women were raped, and other countries in the world, these atrocities have happened. But you know, Islam is a loving and fair religion. We don't turn our backs on people that have gone through hardship. It's not what we do.
Because it's like what you mentioned, that in the world, and not just in the past, but actually even in this day and time, there's politics abroad in different countries, but these women are victims of this kind of crazy behavior from, well, beasts, you know, so we should have
and we've got to acknowledge that this happens to males as well, that maybe not be mentioned, that isn't as mentioned in the Muslim community because it's still a taboo.
It's even more of a taboo, right?
Exactly, but we have to just get rid of this shame and this feeling of guilt and this feeling of your damaged goods. It has to culturally come out of people's minds, inshallah. We got to remember why we're here in the first place. So I think she should walk with her head high, inshallah, pray on it, get some counselling and see what works for her, inshallah.
I think religiously, the oppressor or the raper, would be probably had this, he should have the guilt feeling, and he should probably feel ashamed of what he did. And it happened so many times. People came a few years later, and they get this guilt feeling, make them, you know, always feel bad. While with her, as she said, she shouldn't feel that way, and in fact, she should have a fresh, new page. And these things happen to everyone. Some people, their house got, you know, fire or bomb or whatever. Same scenario, or a disease or illness. Bala, ibtila, you know.
So, can I just ask you, because especially if the person is in the community and we know, we're not saying we know this person, but there's incidences where there's evidence to say that this person carries out this act. They're an abuser, for example.
Okay.
What is the point? Because we've had this in our community before where someone was found to behave in this manner and the police took charge of it. But the community really tried to keep it a secret. What should the punishment be in a situation like this? I'm aware that you need witnesses, etc. But what should be the deterrent, or to tell families not to keep this behavior a secret? Because sometimes it can happen in families as well.
It all depends on the person, whether he denied, whether he accepted, whether he regretted. We can't really have a judgmental thing. It all depends. Always in Islam, there is a call for problems to be resolved in private circumstances, because there is a discourage for the fahisha, ala la tashi' al-fahisha, the bad reputation, the bad stories should be kept as private as possible, because the more open these things become, the more people will probably try to repeat. That doesn't mean that we encourage the oppressor or the raper, and by doing so, no. At some stages, if he insists and if he thinks that he hasn't done it, no, we need to warn the society. Everyone should be aware in order not to get into the same dangerous person. So it all depends. But if he regretted, if he had an accident, or this all depends on how.
See, that personally upsets me, because
He should be just convicted, just be adopted.
Because, sister, how about if he regrets and he wants to open a new page and become religious?
How does that?
Shouldn't we give him the chance?
Just say that happened to me. I'm not going to get that time back or what I've lost back. It's very nice that he feels regretful and he gets a second chance. But what about my scars? I'm just using devil's advocate here. Why are we so, he regrets and repents? This is a serious thing.
So what shall he do?
I think he should be killed.
I was going to say.
For some crimes, isn't it? I thought that it would have to be that he could be regretful after his punishment, whatever the punishment is.
I think he needs to be.
But he must be. If it's some serious crime, that it must be punishment. It must.
Punishment. It all depends on the crime, but always there is a call for peace and forgiveness, and to start a new page. It all depends on him and on her, on what has happened, on what does he think. I agree with you. There are some.
This type of crime is too serious, though.
Yeah, but how about if he was ill? Most of those people.
What do you mean, mental illness?
Yes, or psychological.
Then
Most of those people are not normal. I don't think someone normal will rape a girl at 12 years old.
But that's an excuse that a lot of these people say in courts. I lost my mind, it was temporary insanity. No, it wasn't temporary insanity. You need a psychologist to check to see if you've lost your mind.
But would you think someone normal will rape a 12 years old girl, unless if he's got something
So
wrong
he
somewhere.
should survive and live a life of second
He needs to be
chances.
institutionalized and to get help.
He needs to
True.
be locked up and have help.
To locked up in a hospital then.
And
This
then-
is if he's
Yes, a
dangerous,
secure
yeah.
unit.
It's very difficult decision, and for a scholar, always we ask for peace, for forgiveness, for islah, for
Well, I'm
repentance.
feeling angry. I'm feeling so
You have the
angry.
right to feel angry. Even myself, we
Even
all
I'm
feel
angry.
angry.
Even I'm angry.
But the actions shouldn't be based on anger. Although ولكم في القصاص حياة يا أولي الألباب. The life depends on punishment. Quran says so. So I agree with you up to a certain extent. But it all depends. It all depends on the circumstances, on the crime, on the forgiveness, on the repentance, on whether there is regret, whether he does it once, twice, 3 times.
I just feel like males always get a better sympathy
You
here.
are absolutely right, but in the West now, I mean, I'm talking from my experience from these marital problems. I think males are oppressed.
We'll discuss that.
In the East, yeah, in the Middle East, there is such a thing. But in the West, I think it's the opposite, because now the female are misusing the. I mean, I had so many poor husbands phone me crying because their house has been taken by the husband, and been thrown away, and his children also been taken. So
hijacking, we're hijacking things.
Well, I hope that because we're coming towards the end of the show, I hope, pray, inshallah, that the sister will find a resolution in the challenges ahead, that Allah will make a way for her. And pray that the individual that harmed her is dealt with punishment. Yeah, is punished for the actions.
Don't get worried about punishment. Allah.
Yes, indeed. And I really thank you, Said, for your time and for your wise words. And Sister Ruby, as always, I thank you for your input. It's been excellent today. And thank you for staying with us for the duration of It Takes Two. Hope to see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
Do you need some relationship advice? Do you have marital problems or questions? Perhaps you want to get married and you have questions for us. Please send your thoughts or questions to ittakes2@sophiatv.com.